Good evening. We'll be on in just a couple of minutes. We're just settling in. Thank you. Hold on. All right. Good evening. I'll call the meeting to order at 7:08. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's school board meeting. We'll start tonight with points of pride. Superintendent.
Good evening. So, in case you have not had a chance to take a look at the paper, our paper stars our very own Abe Ewing. who actually will be leaving us at the end of the year to head out to the West Coast. But he was named the 2022 Program of the Year by the New England Association of Woodworking Teachers. So I will pass that around for all of you to see. DCS has kicked off its one school, one book read of Kenny and the Dragon, where all students, with their families' help, are reading the same book. Greenfield Elementary students recently participated in a week-long New Hampshire Dance Institute, or NHDI, residency. They welcomed back families and friends to that show. Hancock Elementary School also had a wonderful NHDI last week and also was very happy to have families back in school. At PES, the first graders went to the McCullough Shepherd Discovery Center in Concord on Thursday, where they got to see, hear, and learn about space discovery. Over the past 2 weeks at PES, several classes walked to the Peterborough Community Center to learn more about pollination with Melissa Stevenson of the New Hampshire Bee Initiative. Finally, at PES, members of the Conval German Club, along with advisor Cindy Hodgson and Elizabeth Concannon, have provided after-school German lessons for some of our PES students. At GBS, I'm sure you have all been waiting to hear about this. The VEX Robotics team, the Awesome Potatoes, returned last Wednesday from Dallas, Texas, competing with teams from 40 nations. The team did really well. They placed in the top 10% in programming portion of the competition. They competed in 11 team matches in which they had to collaborate with randomly selected teams to devise strategies to score as many as 60 points. And the team Awesome Potatoes wants to thank you for supporting their trip to Texas. Also, we want to make sure we recognize Rick Mellon, Carrie Gillespie, and Katrina Young for the many hours they've spent supporting these young women to go to Texas. At the high school. Are you ready? Because it's a long list. All right. The Conval Music Department went to the Great East Music Festival on Friday, May 13th. They went to Palmer High School in Palmer, Massachusetts, where they met some of their band and choir students, warmed up in their classrooms, and performed in their theater. Conval students played and sang and then got feedback. Both the band and choir were exceptional. Teacher Abe Ewing, I already told you about that. Congratulations to track athlete Tasha McNeil, who set a new student record in a school record in the javelin last Tuesday. Tasha threw the javelin 114 feet and 3 inches, breaking the previous record set in 2002 by 11 feet and 3 inches. Tasha is currently ranked first in D2 and second in the state. Kendall Sullivan was named the Keene Sentinel Player of the Week. She is the current junior on the softball team. And congratulations to the 10 students who took the National German exam. This exam is taken by 15,000 students nationwide. Level 4, Hazel Armstrong McFoy was recognized for achievement. Level 2, Jennifer Hopkins for silver. Avery Swayze with a bronze. Colby Sullivan at achievement. Level 1, Kai Rittenauer with a bronze. Ronya Folking with a bronze. Honor Hallberg, achievement. Sam Moritz, achievement. Toby Cornell, achievement. And Maeve Finn, also achievement. And finally, you should have seen from the Conval News that Denise McClellan, who is a 34-year veteran of the district, received recognition as the administrative assistant of the New Hampshire Educational Professionals. And she's the New Hampshire Assistant of the Year. Those are our points of pride.
Thank you, Superintendent. Next would be our student representative that we don't have this evening. That brings us to the first period of public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board at the board meetings. If you are here from the public and would like to address the board, please raise your hand to be recognized by the chair. You'll be provided a period of 2 minutes to address the board. Is there anyone from the public here this evening that would like to address the board? Catherine? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Heck, and I live in Greenfield, and I wanted to be sure to wear a different hat as I wanted to represent the Friends of Conval Athletics and thank the principal, the assistant principal, the athletic director, the superintendent, and the assistant superintendent, as well as the business administrator for supporting us and helping us rally and find volunteers recently as our group tries to come back together after COVID and being a very difficult time with sports being kind of halted during COVID and restarted. So we really wanted to appreciate the effort that's been put in. We've been trying to communicate more with the district, and the principal has been extremely supportive, putting FCVA in her newsletter, and we wanted to recognize that. We are a group of 60 volunteers. We have almost $100,000 in the bank to support our athletes, and we can't do that without everyone's support. So we wanted to recognize that. So thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you very much, and continued thanks to the FCVA for your support. Anyone else? Hearing none, seeing none, there will be another period of public comment at the end of tonight's meeting. We are now on to the consent agenda. You have 3 items in your consent agenda. The first of the minutes from the May 3rd meeting. There is an updated personnel agenda that was in the folder that was provided out to you that includes both resignations and nominations. The resignations are as follows. Conval High School, Courtney Smith, English teacher. Amanda Carey, health and wellness teacher. From South Meadows School, Jessica Kelly, math teacher. From AES, Catherine Liscarbo, kindergarten teacher. DCS, HES, Nicole Pease, principal. From HES, Jennifer Vickers, preschool teacher. And we then have a series of nominations at the high school, at Preschool for All, at Great Brook, at GES, and then the co-curricular nominations are also included in your packet this evening. The other item is the minutes, which I already said. Any questions about any of the items on the consent agenda? Any objections? Hearing none, seeing none, the consent agenda is adopted. The other item for you that's in your Google Drive is the May 1st enrollment update as well. Okay, with that, we are on to the superintendent's report and presentation of business. The first are the monthly event calendars. Superintendent.
Thank you. So we find ourselves at almost the end of May, which is hard to believe. Is there anything additional for next week? Okay, bringing us to June, and July is included in this. Anything that needs to be added for the week of the 30th to the 3rd? The week of the 6th? The week of the 13th? I would remind you that the week of the 20th is the administrative retreat. Anything for the week of the 27th? And we move into July, where our school board meeting is on the 19th. Krista, are we going to have that policy committee meeting, or are we going to set a workshop day? No, sorry. Are we still going to meet as a policy committee prior to the school board meeting? Okay. Workshop. Okay. In your folders is a research project, just notifying you that this is a research project. Happy to answer any questions that you might have about it. It does meet the requirements of policy, so we are encouraging this young woman to complete her requirements.
Dr. Kriebel?
Your thing, turn green. You work, me no work. Um, so, so what is this project? I'm reading it. I don't understand it. I kind of understand asthma, but I don't really understand what we're doing here. So
Okay, so
number one doesn't make any sense to me. So I would like clarification.
this project has to do with somebody working towards an advanced nursing degree, specifically for school settings. So she is going to be identifying those pieces in that provide students that have childhood asthma and see how they relate to climate change pieces in school age children. So as we look at projects, we work with the institution where the person is attending, and we work hard not to pass judgment on the nature of the project, because that's really somebody else's, that's their advisor's job. Okay.
As long as it's not taking any of our assets, works for me.
And then in your folders, there were, I think we have met what has been asked for the school board requests related to preschool for all. There is 4 sheets of paper. The first one discusses, so I need to let you know, we obviously haven't finished enrolling all of the students, so we don't know like we might have their names, but don't necessarily know their individual circumstances. So this gives you kind of the first piece of that information, and information about the income requirements for reduced or free. And then the second sheet is the information about our present program as well as our future program. If you look at the cost, if you have questions about that, I'll be happy to have Ben really explain that more deeply. But basically what we did was we took the cost, we divided it by all of the students, and then we looked at what those related services costs were and said, okay, if our related services personnel are spending 75% of their time appropriately with students who have special needs, then they're spending 25% of their time potentially with students who don't have special needs, or all students. So we took that cost and then we said, this is the cost per child based on a straight regular program. And you can then see that the additional costs below, we did a range of, so a child with special needs coming to the program may bring a cost of this all the way up to this. Again, with small populations, we are particularly careful to give ranges rather than costs. Projected enrollment, you can see below, and we have shared the children who have been placed so far, keeping in mind that we need to save spots. Every year we have usually between 40 and 50 referrals. We're thinking that might be a little lower because the students will already be in the program. So we're estimating that we will need 34 spots for students to be identified between now and the end of next year. So Ben is happy to answer any other questions you might have.
That's posted on the school board Google Drive, is it? I can't find it.
You know what, Jim? I don't know if we put it in there. I apologize. I didn't know anyone was calling in, so I will get that in the Google Drive for as soon as I get back to the office tonight.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And again, I apologize. I did not know. Yeah, I apologize. Questions. You may not have questions right now, but you might have questions over the next week. Please feel free to send those to me.
That's not.
No,
common.
that's yours to keep.
You can have all of that. The folder has to stay here,
Yeah, don't take my folders.
but you can keep all of those materials. Okay.
And with the exception of the website, are there any other, I know, I'm sorry, it's bigger than this conversation. Is there any other outstanding school board requests that I would not know about besides, do you want to,
That was the only one.
Catherine, is your school board request that you made, did we meet that or do you want to? Okay. Okay, so, all right, so we don't need to go back and do that research? Okay, thank you. It would be fine if you said yes. I just want to make sure that we're done. So there are no outstanding school board requests at this point?
I think you said
Yes.
that I'm aware of.
Moving on.
Great. And we did research. Thank you. So that we are on to reports. The first would be teacher's representative. Is there a teacher's representative here tonight? There is not. Next would be policy. Krista.
Oh, we met right before this board meeting. There's going to be 3 that we're going to move to the next meeting for a first read. We did discuss the naming of district buildings and facilities. We are going to move that to our June meeting as we did not have enough time to really get into that as well as we wanted to. There's also another one that's going to be coming forward, the academic integrity and honesty. We're going to be bringing that forward as well in June to discuss that. And am I saying this right? Crow funding?
Crowdfunding. GoFundMe, stuff like that.
I can't read this. Anyway, that's going to be coming. We're going to be talking about that in June as well. So we have a lot to talk about in June. And then we're probably going to go into our July meeting, which is going to be an all day. We're going to get together and really plow through a whole bunch that we have to get done before we get to our updates for fall, which will then bring a whole bunch more. Thanks.
I will take the rest of next year.
That's right.
Thank you, Krista. Food service. Mr. Dunning.
Thank you. We had a very healthy discussion on food and wellness. A good part of that was very healthy is that we had budgeted a little over $86,000, and at this point, we've only had to expend $18,323. So that's a good piece for us to have that. It looks promising for the end of the year that we're not going to be in a deficit. The other thing we discussed was increasing the lunch costs per elementary, middle, high school, and adults. And we're bringing recommendations to the board. It's my understanding that the board has to approve those increases. So what we are suggesting is the elementary lunch be $2.45, middle school $3, high school $3. I thought we bumped it up. Did I take down the wrong note? For each of them. Then I stand corrected. It'll be $2.50. Middle school then would be $3.10. And the high school would be $3.65. I think I have the adult one though. We moved that to $5, I believe. So those would be our recommendations, and that's based off not having any increases in the food program costs for 3 years, and we know we need to make those increases. So we'll be asking the board for approval for those increases, and maybe we could do that now, or do you want me to finish the report?
Can you just go over those numbers one more time so that
Sure.
we have them? Because
Yep.
I heard two different numbers for middle school and for elementary, so I
The
just wanna make
elementary will be we're going to up 10 cents, so we 255. Middle school will be 310. High school will be 365, and adults $5. That's per meal, per day, for lunch. The breakfast program, I believe we were going to leave it as it is priced now. Is that everyone else's recollection? Okay, so we'll only be voting on these increases.
Okay. As soon as you're done the rest of your report,
All right.
we'll do that as a motion.
The summer lunch program, we're going to continue with that. We have ESSER funds that allow us to do that at Conval, PES, AES, and possibly Bennington. We are also going to be providing, but no cost to the district, lunches for the Dublin Rec Department, and they will be charged the going rate for our elementary at the $2.55. But that's their cost, not our cost. It's part of what we can do because we have the summer program running. We would like to move policy JLC forward to policy. We're not making any recommendations in the present policy. And the policy JLCF, I believe, has been moved to have the nurses take a look at that. So we'll leave it in their capable hands until they're ready to bring it back. And I think that ends my report, except for the vote by the board.
So the motion by Mr. Dunning is to set the lunch prices as following: $2.55 at the elementary school, $3.10 at the middle schools, $3.65 at the high school, and $5 for adult meals.
That's correct.
Is there a second?
I will second it.
Moved by Dick, second by Liz. Discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of adopting those prices, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Jim. Opposed? Abstained? Adopted. Thank you. Next up, we have budget and property. Jim?
Talked about was the proposals for the conceptual design of the renovations of the middle schools and high school. And I think we reported last time that we had sent out 4 requests for proposals. We had 3 of the 4 people did the walkthrough, and 3 of the 4 actually submitted proposals on Friday. We have a meeting tomorrow, I believe, to review them, and we can make the copies of that available. I think Lori or Tim, if they're there, can tell you where you can get copies of those. But it looks like we've got 3 good proposals in for us to move forward on the conceptual design with.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Jim? Okay. Thank you, Jim. Next, education. Dr. Ullman.
The Education Committee met amid the monsoons late yesterday afternoon. Amy Yannick presented an update on the evidence-based learning recovery programs implemented at the high school. There already have been positive indicators about the efficacy of these approaches. However, it appears that additional students and tutors need to be recruited. We next received a proposal from Terry, how do you say her last name, the head of Drogue? Head of counseling, for adoption of college and career platform readiness programs, Awato and Zello. These software packages have been described as, quote, the next generation of technology for students kindergarten through 12th grade, unquote. They do meet the requirements of the Drive to 65 SB 276 Act. Through the use of existing funds and Perkins grant monies, there'll be no additional spending to be approved by the board for the adoption of these software packages. Finally, the Education Committee expressed its strong support for the professional development master plan for school years, for the current school year through 2026, 2027. The committee was most impressed with how nuanced and carefully constructed Conval's professional development arrangements are going to be. Congratulations to Dr. Forrest and the members of her professional development committee, and that's it.
That's it. Because that's curriculum, your motion is to adopt I'm sorry, I missed the first one. I know the second one is Zello, but that's a motion you'll need to make so that the board can. Sorry. Hold on, Dr. Forrest, go ahead.
We still are going to be checking with the CVEA
Oh, sorry.
about
Thank you.
feedback from
Okay.
them, and we have to add just the goals from the strategic plan,
You're talking about the PD.
master plan. Is that what? we're
Sorry, I
talking
was
about?
asking about the Zello and the
Oh.
other piece. Sorry, not your piece.
Okay.
Which I'm told is masterful by Dr. Ullman. So because it's curriculum, that falls to approval by the board. So the motion would be to adopt. Again, I forget the first one, so you'll have to read it.
I will support for the adoption of the career platform readiness programs for Watu and Zello.
But I put that in his mind.
She mispronounced that during.
Motion by Dr. Ullman to approve Awaytu and Zello. Second by Tom. Discussion or questions? Dr. Kriebel.
So I will apologize in advance that I have not had a chance to do a whole lot of looking before this afternoon on Zello and Awaytu, or whatever you want to pronounce that. I think it's great that it meets New Hampshire SB whatever. More importantly, Naviance is a national program that has obviously every college is part of. Is Zello comparable?
Zello and Awaytu are considered better than Naviance at this point.
And I think
Thank you.
Additional discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Adopted. Thank you, Dr. Ullman. That is the rest of the reports for tonight. Under old business, in an attempt to provide both the public and the members of the board a more comprehensive listing of the slew of pieces of legislation that are pending before the New Hampshire legislature in some shape or form, we have provided you with the bill numbers along with a either short description or title with about what they are. Again, there are no shortage of these. Some are more likely to continue towards becoming statute than others, but please, I welcome your knowledge.
I was late for the meeting today. The Parental Bill of Rights was still in committee of conference. So that is HB 1431. So that the House and the Senate did not agree on that bill. And so that went to a committee of conference and it is not agreed upon yet. So we're waiting to see if it gets rescheduled at this point. It could still be going for all I know this time. Just looking down the list a little bit, SB 410 relative to public comment periods for 30 minutes at school board meetings has a companion very similar bill, HB 1195. 1195 went to committee of conference. That would require a 30-minute public comment period. So we don't have a decision on that bill yet. SB 420, which establishes the extraordinary need grant for schools, it did pass in the committee of conference. However, it was modified significantly to have accountability pieces and the school districts. There's a lot of, it's not just going to be an automatic grant making process. There's a lot of accountability pieces now. So I'd encourage you to read that amendment that passed. House Bill 1367 with the civics exam does require a grade of 70% or higher on a 128 question test. That has passed. We're also SB 1661 relative to the CTE agreement, schedules and calendars, ended up having many bills attached to it, one of them being SB 400 relative to zoning and planning boards. That is in committee of conference, and there's a lot of debate and amendment around that bill as we speak. And House Bill 1417 passed the House 6 times, both regular House and the finance committees, and kept coming back. It did come back and was attached to yet another bill. That bill was relative to 7.5% contribution to employer contribution costs. So the Senate had passed it and then tabled it. The House passed it again by attaching it to another bill. So it's going to committee of conference because House Bill 1221, which does the same thing but is a one-time payment for 1 year only because we're not in a budget cycle, also passed both bodies. So that is tomorrow. So I can email you all where that's at. Yes. And I think that's all the ones I know off the top of my head at the moment. But they've been amended significantly, many of them. So
I noticed the one about the public comment was down to 30 minutes. It was originally
right.
it was originally unlimited, then it was an hour, and so now it's been knocked down again.
And
to-
both the Senate and the House version are
30
down
minutes.
to 30 minutes at this moment in time.
Okay.
But it's at committee of conference.
Sure.
So that has to be decided by Wednesday at 3 o'clock. So at that time, anything that hasn't been decided either is died or will move on to become legislation. So we are, and then, so they'll do their final votes on May 26th, both the House and the Senate. So it's only a week away, and then we'll know the final. The water bottle filling station, those were very long meetings, interestingly enough.
A lot of ours are already, it's to make sure that it's not just the old fashioned bubbler. It has the
Water bottle filling
water bottle
station.
thing on top. Many of ours already have those, so.
So, yeah, the end is almost here, and then we'll know where we shake out. But quite a few of the bills have been tabled or have gone away. And one thing that we're not seeing on here is all the vaccine and masks bills,
Right.
which I know people are very interested in. And to this point, there are no vaccine or mask bills that would be completely detrimental to local control at this moment in time, to my knowledge. But there was over 100 filed. So, and I don't follow all of those.
Yeah.
So,
Thank
with
you.
that caveat, so don't say it can be attached at any
Yeah,
moment
of
to
course,
another bill.
sure.
There's still time.
Well, they've been attaching plenty of stuff to other bills, like SB 400 is now.
So SB 329, which is the Commission to Study Barriers to Specific Housing Development. So why would we be watching that? So what happened was HB 1194, which was considered inexpedient to legislate. That was basically about the local tax caps. So what happened is the text of that bill ended up in an amendment to SB 329, which is the Commission to Study Barriers to Specific Housing Development. Don't know why, it wasn't there, but that's why we're now watching SB 329, because it addresses tax caps for local school districts. Okay, so then there's also the same thing with SB 400, which is relative to zoning and planning boards and affordable housing. So why would we be watching that? Well, that has to do with HB 1393, which was school district budget caps. So that was also deemed inexpedient to legislate, and then the text of that bill mysteriously found itself in SB 400. So what is happening is you're taking a bill that people are testifying pretty aggressively against, that there's not a lot of support for, and moving it into bills that there is significant support for. So this is not the first time we've seen this, but it is the first time that it's gotten a little bit like having to, it feels sometimes like I'm taking the GRE over and over and over again. So if you guys have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. It's a confusing time, and I'll be happy when Friday comes. Thursday's the official last day though, right? One more session.
Thank you all. Questions for anything we didn't cover? Great. Okay. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 policies for you tonight that are here for second reads. The first is policy. Is policy DID, fixed assets.
I move that we adopt policy DID, fixed assets, as written.
Moved by Janine, second by Dr. Allman. Discussion. All in favor of adopting policy DID, fixed assets, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Policy DID, fixed assets is adopted. Next is policy FA, facilities development goals, priority objective.
Before I go on, Krista, we didn't get any changes to any of these, did we? Okay. I move that we adopt policy FA, facilities development goals and priority objective, as written.
Moved by Janine, second by Dr. Allman. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Next is policy FAA, annual facility plan.
I move that we adopt policy FAA, the annual facility plan, as written.
Moved by Janine, second by Dr. Allman. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Policy FAA, annual facility plan is adopted. Next, policy FE, facilities construction.
I move that we adopt policy FE, facilities construction, as written.
Discussion. Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor of adopting policy FE, facilities construction, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstained. Policy FE, facilities construction is adopted. Last one is policy JLCJA, emergency plan for sports-related injuries.
I move that we adopt policy JLCJA, emergency plan for sports-related injuries, as written.
Moved by Janine, second by Dr. Allman. Discussion. All in favor of adopting policy JLCJA, emergency plan for sports-related injuries, say aye. Opposed, nay. Abstained. Policy JLCJA, emergency plan for sports-related injuries is adopted. We are now into new business. There will be 2 additional items, if you will permit me. One is with regard to permission to hire for the superintendent that I will discuss briefly. The second is from Dr. Kriebel. So we're going to start with our first read policies tonight. You have 2. The first is policy DJE. Those are bidding requirements. The next is policy JLCJ, concussions and head injuries. So those are your first read policies. Catherine.
I just have a question about policy DJE, bidding requirements. And
Sure.
forgive me. I know I missed a meeting, but I don't remember, our current policy is a $15,000 threshold and we're going up to 20. I don't remember that discussion. Don't know where that occurred because I thought that policy was going to go to the budget and property as well.
So that happened at the last. Yeah. You weren't there.
No.
I don't think so, no. Okay. Can we, so we had talked about that policy specifically going to budget and property as well to make sure it aligns, because we have a lot of federal grant making right now. So we had wanted to discuss that, because that threshold is probably on the low side for the district our size. And we also don't have a competitive bid section, which we should probably have. So we could have quotes, bids, and a competitive section, so that we could ensure that the district can do its business.
Quotes, bids, and in
Sealed
theory,
bids.
and single source. I think it's probably a broader, based on those
Probably a
issues,
bigger,
I
it's
think it might
probably
be
a bigger discussion. That's what we had talked about at various times. I know we touched base on it. The budget and property talked about it. It seems like having more options and different thresholds would probably make the process simpler for purchasing in our district. And of course, then we want to align it to our capital plan, and we're developing that policy as well. So it's an important discussion to have, in my opinion. So it's up to the board, what happens.
I make a motion that we move that policy to budget and property and then bring it back to the board after they've had a chance to review it. Because I know we've talked about this bid process and we want to make sure it was adequate for what we need to do so we don't hinder being able to get out and make appropriate bids. And I also believe that maybe 15, the 20, it may be a little, we should have it maybe higher for the size we are and what we need to do, particularly with what's coming up around construction. So that would be my motion, that we move it to the budget and property.
I second that motion.
Moved by Dick, second by Catherine. Additional discussion? I would only want to remind us, we should also have a policy on sole source if we don't already. We do, right? I think so. Okay, thanks. All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? All right, so that one will go over to budget and property for their review. Thank you very much. Expenditure and encumbrance report. Lori.
Okay, a report was included in your packet with explanations for overages. I would remind you that we are approaching year end and we're working on cleaning up things. And so in the next month, I'll be bringing some budget transfer requests, I imagine, to clean up some of these. And then some of them are related to the need to receive trust reimbursement. But until we actually complete the project or expenditure, I don't request reimbursement from the trust. So there'll be timing difference.
Thank you, Lori. Is there a motion to approve the expenditure and encumbrance report?
So moved.
Moved by Dick,
Second.
second by Catherine. Discussion? Questions? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor of approving the expenditure and encumbrance report, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstained? The expenditure and encumbrance report is approved. Next is on the agenda is town payments. Also, Lori.
Okay, I believe in your folder there is a schedule of the district apportionment and town payments. This is the schedule that we had discussed in April, but we're bringing it back to revisit to see what we would like to do as far as including fund balances in it, in the calculation. So I think it ties into the next discussion.
Yeah, those are two related discussions. So on the other side, this is the same one that you provided, I believe,
Yes.
in April. It has those values on it for you. Questions, comments, concerns? So just for my own clarification, this is labeled July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022. Is this current or this is proposed?
No, I will need to.
Okay, just making sure. I read it 6
you.
times and thought I was reading the wrong one, so I just want to make sure.
Right.
Thank you. Dr. Ullman.
So Laura, you've established the principle that each of the 9 towns shall have identical monthly, well, Yeah, Antrim will pay $388,000 in July and the same amount in June. And that is the case with all of the other 8 towns.
That's historically the approach that we've taken with providing this payment schedule. Helps to equalize our cash flow, particularly during months when we are not receiving our adequacy aid.
And the board has supported you in,
This is
This
historic.
precedes me.
Yeah, I mean, this is a long time coming that got us to where we are now with this based on input directly from the towns. Catherine.
So I think it's important to note that this is a payment schedule that comes out in June, and another one will come out in December after the tax bills are issued, adjusting for all the final reporting and the tax rate setting. So it's important to note that the schedule will change and it will not most likely be the same. And usually from June to December, it's a higher payment amount, and then it's reduced if we're lucky. But it has been historically, in the 16 years I've been the treasurer of the town of Greenfield, gone down. So it's also a way for towns to be able to stabilize their cash flow. So it's a mutually beneficial agreement. However, it's not, it's a mandatory payment. It's not optional.
Right, and just for everyone's education, in theory, we could require a single one-time payment. We could do it twice a year, right? We could do it quarterly. We could do it through any combination of that.
That's
right?
correct. It is set by the school district.
And so this is these types of monthly payments, and being done this way has been a long process within this district to get to this point. Again, I would remind everyone at the request of the towns. So that is where we are on that. I will repeatedly say that as I am asked about that, even by my town, repeatedly. So additional questions or comments on anything that's contained in here relative to either the monthly payment schedule or anything on the other side, which is all of the apportionment. Go ahead, Jim. Yep.
The only comment I would make is I would probably start the first in the next year's financial articles talking about this and talking about the fund balance, and talking about tax bills again, just because I think what people are going to see is a significant increase because last year we had this, so much was returned. I just want to make sure that's clear to everybody. Okay.
Thank you,
I don't
Jim.
have all the numbers together, but I think there is definitely a story here to be told.
Thank you, Jim. We'll do Catherine.
So it's just important to note from the taxpayer perspective, they're not going, even though we're going to see an increase because we're talking about a new budget cycle, they're paying on last year. So in their June tax bill, they're not going to see any of these, any change. So it's just really important to note that because there's the town perspective, the school districts, and then there's the taxpayer perspective. And they're very important to understand, and they're quite different, the mechanics on how it works. We're always a little bit behind on the tax bill. So people think that what they voted in March is what they're paying. That's what they see in their tax bill, and then it breathe a sigh of relief, and then they're very discouraged sometimes depending on what it looks like in December. But they don't pay until December on what they voted on in March.
Thank you, Catherine. A very good way to explain that. Okay, so you would be looking for us to approve this so it can be sent out? Are we there yet?
Well, I think that, so typically, well, I should say typically, we have promised in our budgeting that we're going to return at least $250 in fund balance. And 250,000. Okay, sorry. Yep, $250,000. And last year, we increased that, I believe, to 800,000 on our preliminary, or was it 1.8? I don't remember. I'm sorry. We increased it based on our projected return. So we need to discuss that again with this year. Do you want to leave it at the 250,000, or do you want to change the amount based on my projected return of fund balance? And by change the amount, that would reduce the amount apportioned to the towns. And this is an advance, if you will, against the adjustment that is done when the tax rates are set. So it's giving them the benefit of that in advance.
So what is your projected fund balance for next year?
Again, I would remind you that we're at the end of the year and going through the cleanup process, and this is an estimate. I'm comfortable telling you that we're going to return approximately $1 million.
How much?
$1 million, 1 million.
1 million, okay. And historically, we've kept it, this tax apportionment document or payment document at 250 when it's been, and the only time we've changed that was when we had a huge return that we knew of.
Okay.
And so the $1 million you're talking about fund balance is in line with normal fund balances. So I suggest we just leave your town payment schedule at the 250 and adjust it in December like we normally do. Last year was absolutely an abnormal year.
Catherine.
So, just looking in the town payment schedule, for example, in Greenfield, our payment monthly is going up $65,000, but we don't collect those dollars until December. So for cash flow purposes, it's always a good faith effort to move some fund balance forward, if at all possible, if the board agrees, because these are heavy lifts on the town side too, and we always want to be good partners. I appreciate having a $1 million estimate, because that gives us a number to consider that might be below $1 million, but above 250,000. When we consider last year, I think this time last year we voted on either 1.3 or 1.8 million, but we ended up with 4.3 million. And had we had a different estimate, perhaps we would have moved forward encumbering funds for a legally enforceable obligation like paving a high school parking lot. Because of course we want to avoid the ups and downs on the tax bill. So we saw a big downward trend on the school side of the tax bill. And I'm always concerned about that, because I think it's more palatable to have as level as possible of a tax bill. And one of the levers that we pull to do that is using how we use fund balance and when we choose to use it. So that's just, if we don't encumber the funds or have a legally enforceable obligation by the end of the year, I agree, we will not have the same dollars to give back. But we always want to be sure that we are considering those spikes and dips in the tax rate. I think that's important, and it's important that we have that conversation as a board.
Dick.
My concern is the funds that we return, that when we look at the, I can't remember the name of the group that was here recently that did an evaluation at the high school on safety in the parking lot. Is it handicapped access? What was the group that was here that just did an evaluation for us? Well, in reference to, I do know that one of the things that was a grave concern is the parking lot. And we may be at a point where we can't say we're not addressing it, that we're going to need to address that, because it will be a violation if we don't. So I realize we need to return funds. We should do that when we can, but at the same time, we have an obligation for the district to meet the needs of our own needs within the parameters. And when you look at the safetiness, that's a high priority at the parking lot. It's on levelness. So anyway.
Just to give some context to people who have not been on the board as long as both Krista, this is coming back, and Dick and some other members, the parking lot was designed to and planned to have a whole additional layer of tar paving, asphalt, right. And because it hasn't been, the grades are not to how it was designed. So that is problematic from an ADA place. I don't know, obviously we brought the fund balance estimate. How you want to then approach that is up to the board. I would just remind the board that we do have to at least give back what we estimated, or else we'll we have to do that. And then, there should be larger conversations about considering how other uses of the fund balance, because it's not just as cut and dry as can we do X or can we do Y? So that if those are things you want to talk about, if you could let Lori and I know, and we can bring that information to you.
So I would like to move that we consider returning 500,000 so that we have met our obligation, and we will then make a slight reduction in the payments. It should be well within the estimate, and that we consider a conversation when it gets closer to the end of June. When we have closer estimates on fund balance. So that should be a safe number that I hope our business administrator and superintendent can be comfortable with.
So I just want to make sure that we are clear on the direction. Is the motion is to use $500,000 of the estimated fund balance to defray the June to December payments, and to rebuild this based on a return of $500,000 between June and December. Okay. Or July and December, sorry, July and December, not June.
Yep, that is
Same amount for June, guys, sorry.
That's the intention of my motion.
Okay, great.
I'll second the motion.
Is there a second? Second by Greg. Discussion. Janine.
So, so that means there would not be any if we're like considering using the rest of the fund balance for the parking lot as, was suggested?
The
Okay.
estimate's $1 million.
Okay, the estimate's $1 million.
The estimate was
So
$1 million.
The additional 500 then I know it's an estimate, but should there be another 500 left, then that would be used to reduce the December payments.
Yeah, any additional funds in fund balance that don't have to be legally encumbered for an enforceable obligation or contract would then go back to the taxpayer in December. We're just committing right now to reduce this payment schedule.
Right.
That's all we're doing. There's no other discussion on the table.
Right. I'm just trying to think like if there's less, because that December payment is when the next budget is going to hit. Those payments will be higher.
Well, historically, and I'm sure Lori can go back in endless records, and I have my own file. Historically, we would estimate on the higher side, based on the budget that we just adopted, not knowing all of the factors, because we have the revaluations, we have so many factors that go into that formula. It doesn't correct itself until December. So you have to have a conservative estimate to ensure that you're getting adequate cash flow based on the budget that we adopted. But typically, we find that in 15 years anyway, the payment has decreased in December, regardless of what we voted in March, just because fund balance is a factor to that. And then all the other things that you see on this sheet factor into that. So, and all those forms aren't due until September 1st to the DRA. So it's kind of it's an estimate that we're working on, and it's a payment schedule that is an estimate based on the best knowledge and information we have at this moment. So that's why Lori's giving us an estimate that we can try to work with to make a commitment to the towns at this time to help ease the burden a little bit without impacting our cash flow. So any other discussion right now based on the fund balance estimate till Lori has time to continue her work as she described would be premature, in my opinion.
Dr. Ullman, you had your hand up?
I was going to ask Laurie a really unfair question, which you don't have to answer. How comfortable are you with this motion? If you were a school board member, 10 would be total comfort, just loving it, and 1 would be being tortured.
Dr. Ullman, I don't think.
No?
No.
So I would ask that you withdraw your
I
question.
withdraw that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ullman.
Sorry. I don't usually say that, but.
So I mean, so the business administrator gave you the best estimate, which was of $1 million. Our standing policy or practice has been $250,000 has been what we agreed to minimally return to the towns, and Catherine's motion is to double. Superintendent.
So if the administration was uncomfortable with the motion, we would let you know.
I thought you might have.
I'm very comfortable,
Okay, very.
rather than Lori having to say that.
Yes,
I'm
Jim.
very comfortable.
Go ahead, Jim.
Warrant article approved that comes into play after this next fiscal year, not this fiscal year spending.
Correct. June of 2023. That's the first. That's the budget.
Yeah, I found it as I was asking the question.
Additional discussion on the motion to use $500,000 to adjust the payments between July and December. Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. Abstained? The motion is passed.
We'll bring
Sorry.
a new town payment schedule.
Perfect.
We'll bring a new town payment schedule for the June something meeting, June 7th?
7th, I think
June
it's the
7th
7th.
meeting.
I think that's right. Thank you both. That's that. So the other point of new business that we do usually do at this meeting, given the fact that we are in May and hiring is ramping up. At this meeting, traditionally, this board has granted the superintendent the authority to hire in order to not delay losing people in this highly competitive labor market, meaning that the superintendent will be able to act on those without having to wait for our action at a board meeting that may be 2 or 3 weeks away. So I would ask the board to give the superintendent hiring authority between now and the end of the year. Does that work?
As long as someone moves it.
Is there anyone willing to make such a motion?
I will. I move that we authorize the superintendent to hire without board approval during the June and July,
No,
month?
between now and June.
between now and
June 30.
June 30th.
Oh, sorry, end of July? Oh, going into the
Now through July 30th.
31st.
31st. Jeez. Yeah.
Mr. Dunning.
We have 2 board meetings in June. So why wouldn't we make this motion when we're not meeting? But in June, we're still here.
Sure.
At least the first week of June.
So
It
we,
seems early for me for a board not to be participating in hiring, at least to the first week of June. If past history has been different than that, but it just seems early because we still have board meetings.
so we usually do this one because there's traditionally 3 weeks between the last meeting in May and the first meeting in June. But most of it is around the ramp up around hiring, that a day or two can mean the difference between getting a candidate and not getting a candidate. So that has traditionally been the reason. If the board chooses not to go in that direction, then we'll simply wait and fair as we are. Do as well as we can.
If this is what we've done typically, I'm comfortable with it. Just seems early, that's all. And that doesn't mean my memory remembers.
So I'll second the motion.
Thank you. So moved by Janine, second by Catherine. Additional discussion. Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. Abstained? So moved. Did you see my response? Sure. Is there? Sure. In general, that's a better thing for a phone call or an email, but have at it if you'd like. As a board member, I really can't stop.
So I appreciate, my new business was the middle school dance being scheduled on the same day as graduation. I understand that it's now changed, for which I say thank you. We voted, I went back to the minutes, we voted on March 1st at that meeting for a graduation date. I'm guessing the middle school dance was scheduled after that. It's now been changed again. Do we not have a district calendar for stuff? Because if we don't, it's kind of ludicrous. It's very frustrating for parents for this kind of stuff to happen. Doesn't make the administration look very bright. Doesn't make us board members look very bright. It's frustrating. So here we are.
Do you want me to respond? Or are you feeling like you?
I respond to it. I mean, like I said, I guess question number
do-
one is there a calendar which Mr. Tim at the middle school can look at and say, hey, look, there's graduation.
So
Can we
I
schedule
would
something here?
respectfully request if we're going to talk about individual staff members that we go into non-public. We do have a district calendar. We are experiencing some adjustments because we had so many events. We didn't have events for so long. And so people are not as, that people are enthusiastically filling up their calendars without necessarily checking that district calendar. So we do.
Anything else? Hearing none, seeing none. We have now reached the second period of public comment of tonight's board meeting. If there is any member of the public that would like to address the board tonight, please raise your hand to be recognized by the chair for a period of 2 minutes. Hearing none, seeing none, that ends the public comment of tonight's school board meeting. Next, we have the approval of manifests. Lori.
All right, I certify that manifests totaling $2,512,775.78 have been reviewed by me and found to be proper charges against Catucket Valley School District for goods and/or services received and have been properly processed prior to their submittal to the school board.
I move we approve the manifest as presented.
Seconded.
Moved by Dick, second by Jim. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? The manifests are approved. We do have, hold on, let me rack them up. Some non-publics for you tonight. We have legal, student, and personnel. So we have some non-public items tonight. We have legal, student, and personnel.
I move that we go into non-public session under RSA 91-A : negotiations
No.
and legal.
Student. Well, that's legal.
Second.
Oh, then, moved by Janine, second by Liz. Tim?
Liz.
Dick?
Catherine as well. All right, we're now in the non-public. We'll take a quick 5 minutes.